Welcome to the Herb Library. Let's open today's page of nature's wisdom. What if the best medicine on earth wasn't made in a lab, but written into the world's oldest book, thousands of years before modern medicine existed? The Bible was naming foods that clinical research is now proving fight inflammation, protect the heart, and heal at a cellular level. Not rituals, not poetry, real foods, real science. Today, 10 of them. Foods that could change how you eat for the rest of your life. Stick around. Number 7 was once a gift for royalty. Modern researchers call it one of the most protective foods for your eyes ever studied. And number 10 sustained a man who lived alone in the wilderness for years. Scientists found it contains a compound that acts almost exactly like insulin. Want ancient wisdom paired with real research every week? Hit subscribe now. Let's get into it. 10 biblical superfoods that will heal you, ranked from powerful to game-changing. Today's library entry is 1. Olive oil. Haha, the liquid gold of the ancient world. Let's start with the one that shows up everywhere. The Bible mentions olive oil across dozens of passages. Deuteronomy calls it out twice as a defining blessing of the Promised Land. Song of Solomon is soaked in it. This wasn't a side ingredient, it was food, fuel, medicine, and sacred substance, all in one. Here's the detail most people skip. Kings were anointed with it. Priests were consecrated with it. It was rubbed into wounds, poured over the sick, burned in lamps to light homes after dark. One substance doing the job of a pharmacy, a fuel station, and a temple ritual. Modern science backs it up. Olive oil is loaded with oleic acid, the fat behind the Mediterranean diet, one of the most studied eating patterns in cardiovascular research. The real standout is oleocanthal, which inhibits the same COX-1 and COX-2 pathways ibuprofen blocks. Hydroxytyrosol and vitamin E protect LDL cholesterol from the oxidation that drives artery damage. But here's what most people miss. Not all olive oil qualifies. The refined, heat-processed bottles on grocery shelves have lost the compounds that made this food medicinal. It has to be cold-pressed and extra virgin. Traditional use, a tablespoon of high-quality extra virgin olive oil daily, used generously in cooking, and applied topically for skin and minor wounds. Exactly how it was used 3,000 years ago. 2. Raw honey, heaven's antimicrobial. Eat honey, for it is good, Proverbs says. Deuteronomy names it directly. A land flowing with milk and honey. That wasn't poetry. Honey was one of the only concentrated, shelf-stable sources of energy in the ancient world, treated as medicine as much as food. And the reputation holds up. Raw honey contains glucose oxidase, an enzyme that produces hydrogen peroxide when diluted. Why it's been used for centuries to disinfect wounds. Flavonoids like pinostrobin, pinosembrin, and chrysin add antibacterial and anti-inflammatory power. Some research even shows a pain-blunting effect comparable to low-dose opioids. But here's the key word: raw. Heat and filter it, which is what happens to almost every bear-shaped bottle, and those enzymes and compounds break down. What's left is sugar water wearing honey's name. Traditional use: raw honey on minor wounds, a spoonful in warm water at the first sign of a sore throat, and small daily amounts to feed gut bacteria like bifidobacteria. 3. Figs, the fruit the prophets prescribed. Deuteronomy lists figs among the Promised Land's defining crops. 1 Samuel tells of a starving Egyptian servant revived with a cake of figs and raisins. Food that could bring a dying man back wasn't ordinary. It was restorative in a way people couldn't yet explain. The explanation was in the fruit. Figs are dense in potassium, calcium, and soluble fiber, supporting blood pressure and acting as a gentle laxative. Their polyphenols are tied to reduced inflammation body-wide. But here's what most people miss. Dried figs carry a much higher glycemic load than fresh. Eaten daily in excess, they spike blood sugar fast. In a world with no multivitamin aisle, figs were the multivitamin, concentrated minerals, fiber, and energy in a fruit that needed no refrigeration. Traditional use: fresh figs at peak ripeness for gut health and minerals, dried figs in moderation for energy. Never forgetting dried doesn't mean harmless in large amounts. 4. Pomegranate, the fruit carved into the temple itself. The pomegranate wasn't just eaten, it was built into sacred architecture. Exodus and 1 Kings describe it embroidered into priestly garments and cast in bronze around Solomon's temple pillars, 200 per pillar. That's not decoration, that's a fruit worth memorializing in stone. Modern science explains why. Pomegranates are loaded with punicalagens and ellagic acid, polyphenols shown to block LDL from oxidizing, a key step toward clogged arteries. Research also ties pomegranate compounds to reduced platelet aggregation, less intestinal inflammation, and better insulin sensitivity. But here's what most people miss. Everyone drinks the juice and tosses the rest, when the seeds and fibrous membrane hold most of the polyphenols. Bottled juice is often diluted or sweetened, watering down the very compounds worth carving into a temple pillar. Traditional use: eat the seeds fresh when possible. Choose 100% pomegranate juice, with no added sugar otherwise. This fruit is worth the effort of opening, because the effort is where the benefit lives. 5. Barley, the grain of the ordinary people. Barley wasn't glamorous. It was the grain of soldiers, laborers, and the poor. In John 6, when Jesus fed 5,000, those loaves were barley bread. Survival food, not luxury, eaten by an entire civilization out of necessity for centuries. And necessity built something effective. Barley has one of the highest beta-glucan concentrations of any grain, a soluble fiber that gels in the small intestine and traps bile acids, forcing the liver to pull cholesterol from the blood to make more. That's the mechanism behind barley's documented LDL reductions. The same fiber slows glucose absorption, blunting post-meal blood sugar spikes. But here's what most people miss. Barley still contains gluten. For celiac disease, or gluten sensitivity, this biblical staple isn't a fit, no matter how ancient the pedigree. Traditional use: whole or hulled barley as porridge or in soups and stews, chosen over pearled barley, since pearling strips away the fiber that makes it worth eating. Quick pause, because people ask me this constantly. Where do you actually get the real versions of this stuff, not the watered-down supermarket kind? Good question. Here's the problem. Most of what's sold today isn't what the Bible was talking about. Most commercial olive oil is cut with cheap seed oils and never truly cold-pressed. Most honey is heated and filtered into flavored sugar syrup. Want real heirloom seed to grow this yourself? Good luck finding it at a big box garden center. So I did the research. The sources I trust for the real, unprocessed versions, but I will reveal it in the next video. Haha. Now back to the list. We're just getting to the ones that will genuinely surprise you, including the one I teased at the start. 6. Lentils, the meal that changed a birthright. Genesis gives us one of the most famous food stories in the Bible. Esau, starving after a day in the field, trades away his birthright to Jacob for a single bowl of red lentil stew. That story only works if lentils could satisfy real, desperate hunger. Not a garnish, a survival food. And that's exactly what they were. Lentils are one of the richest plant-based protein sources available, roughly 18 grams per cooked cup, plus iron, folate, and potassium. The food of soldiers and laborers whose bodies demanded steady fuel, not empty calories. Modern research adds more. Lentils are packed with slowly digestible and resistant starch that skips digestion in the small intestine and gets fermented in the colon instead. That fermentation triggers satiety hormones like GLP-1 and peptide YY, the same hormones some modern medications are designed to mimic. That's why a bowl of lentils can suppress appetite for hours. But here's what most people miss. That same fiber causes the bloating lentils are famous for. Soak them first, and it drops significantly. Traditional use: lentils slow-cooked with cumin and coriander, soaked beforehand, served with a drizzle of olive oil. Hasn't changed in 3,000 years. Pistachios and walnuts, the nut fit for a king. Number 7, the one I teased at the start. When famine hits Egypt in Genesis, Jacob sends his sons back for grain, not empty-handed. He sends gifts meant to impress the Egyptian official controlling the food supply of an entire empire. Among them, pistachios. Genesis 43:11, right alongside myrrh, honey, and spices. Think about that. Jacob wasn't scraping together pantry scraps. He chose what he believed would impress a powerful man. If pistachios made that list, they weren't a snack. They were a luxury, tribute-worthy, the kind of thing kings received. Here's why. Pistachios carry an exceptionally high concentration of lutein, dramatically higher than most tree nuts. Lutein accumulates in the eye's macular tissue, filtering harmful light and protecting against age-related vision decline. Walnuts add alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3 that converts in the body to compounds that lower LDL and calm arterial inflammation. But here's what most people miss. Pistachios also carry resveratrol, the same longevity compound famous in red wine, sitting quietly inside a snack food. Traditional use, raw or lightly roasted, a small daily handful, treated the way Jacob treated it, as something valuable enough to give away. 8. Garlic, the food they wept for in the wilderness. Numbers gives us one of the rawest food memories in Scripture. Wandering the wilderness, eating nothing but manna, the Israelites break down, remembering what they left in Egypt: fish, cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. Numbers 11:5. They wept over garlic. Once you know what garlic does in the body, that grief makes sense. Garlic stores allanase quietly in its cells until it's crushed or cut. Then an enzyme called allanase converts it almost instantly into allicin, a powerful antimicrobial. Allicin disrupts bacterial and fungal cell membranes. Garlic's sulfur compounds also boost nitric oxide, relaxing blood vessels and lowering blood pressure. Here's the detail that matters. This is garlic as food, not garlic as supplement. In cooking amounts, it's safe and beneficial for virtually everyone. Concentrated garlic supplements are different. They thin blood enough that doctors advise stopping them a week before surgery, and they interact with blood thinners like warfarin, plus certain blood pressure and diabetes medications. On those, talk to your doctor first. Traditional use, raw or lightly cooked garlic, crushed and left to sit a few minutes before cooking to maximize allicin, worked generously into everyday meals. 9. Fish, the food of fishermen and prophets. Fish runs through the Gospels constantly. The disciples were fishermen. The miraculous feedings centered on fish. After the resurrection, Jesus eats fish in front of his disciples, proof he wasn't a ghost. In 1st century coastal Israel, fish was the primary protein source for ordinary people, caught and eaten the same day. That daily habit was quietly one of the most powerful dietary choices available. Fatty fish like sardines are among the richest natural sources of EPA and DHA. Omega-3s the body can't make on its own. DHA makes up a major share of brain cell membranes. EPA is one of the most studied anti-inflammatory compounds in nutrition science, linked to lower cardiovascular disease and cognitive decline. But here's what most people miss. Preparation matters as much as the fish itself. Grilled over an open fire, the way John 21 describes Jesus preparing it, preserves those fragile omega-3s. Breading, deep frying, and seed oil cooking degrade them before the fish reaches the plate. Traditional use, 2 to 3 servings of fatty, smaller fish like sardines per week, grilled, baked, or pan-seared, never fried. 10. Carob, the food of a man who lived alone in the wilderness. Number 10, the one I teased at the very beginning. Matthew describes John the Baptist in the wilderness, wearing camel's hair, surviving on locusts and wild honey. Scholars have debated locusts for centuries. Many point not to insects, but to the pods of the carob tree, wild throughout the Judean wilderness, known for millennia as St. John's bread. Combined with wild honey, it's a complete survival diet, one that let a man reportedly thrive out there for years, not just endure. Modern science backs it up. Carob pods are up to 40% fiber by dry weight, with polyphenolic tannins that bind toxins and calm gut inflammation, historically used to treat diarrhea before pharmaceuticals existed. But the detail genuinely surprising researchers is a compound called pinnitol. Here's what most people miss entirely. Pinnitol has an insulin mimetic effect. It shuttles glucose into cells almost exactly like insulin does, stabilizing blood sugar instead of spiking it. A wilderness survival food, eaten by a man with no access to modern medicine, containing a compound that mimics one of the body's own regulatory hormones. Traditional use: carob pods, eaten raw for a naturally sweet, fibrous snack, or carob powder in place of processed sugar in baking. Sustained energy, no crash. 10 foods, thousands of years of use behind every one, passed down long before anyone understood why they worked. Olive oil calms inflammation, honey fights bacteria, barley lowers cholesterol, garlic protects the heart, carob stabilizes blood sugar. The book was right about what healed people. It just didn't explain the biochemistry, because the biochemistry was never the point. The healing was the point. Before you go, information without action is just entertainment. In the next video, everything we covered now, the sources I trust for real, unprocessed versions of these foods, and where to find heirloom seeds. I'll tell where to get them, if you want to grow them yourself. One honest note, because it matters: these foods support a healthy body, but they're not a replacement for medical care. Managing a real diagnosis or taking prescription medication, especially blood thinners or diabetes medication, talk to your doctor before making major changes. A few of today's foods can interact with those. Ancient wisdom and modern medicine work best together, not instead of each other. If you're enjoying these library entries, subscribe and become part of our growing library of herbal learners. Haven't subscribed to the Herb Library? Hit that button, ring the bell. We post every week, and we're just getting started. The Herb Library is now closed until our next library entry. Stay curious, stay informed, and let nature be your teacher.